John Dawson, the father, a successful architect, diligent but often absorbed in his work. He is a pragmatic man who values logic and reason. Sarah Dawson, the mother, a compassionate and nurturing figure, who runs a local art gallery. She is deeply connected to her children and is intuitive about their emotional needs. Emily Dawson, the younger sister, 12 years old, bright and cheerful, who adores her older brother and looks up to him. David Dawson, the 16-year-old son, who has recently begun exhibiting troubling behaviors. Previously a well-adjusted and academically successful teenager, David has become increasingly withdrawn and irritable. His struggles have recently intensified, causing concern for his family. Father Michael O'Reilly, a well-respected parish priest known for his deep faith and empathetic nature. He is called upon when more conventional methods fail to address David's symptoms. The story opens with David Dawson's gradual decline from a model student to a troubled teenager. He starts experiencing sudden mood swings, erratic behavior, and disturbing episodes of aggression. His once bright and hopeful demeanor is replaced by dark and unsettling traits. These changes begin with inexplicable bursts of anger and bouts of depression, followed by bizarre and unexplainable incidents such as speaking in unfamiliar languages and displaying a heightened sensitivity to religious symbols. Sarah and John, initially attributing David's behavior to teenage angst or stress from school, attempt to address the issue through various means. They engage in several family discussions, hoping their support will bring David back to his normal self, but the situation only worsens. David is taken to a general practitioner who conducts a series of tests, including blood work and a physical examination. The results are inconclusive, showing no significant abnormalities. The doctor suggests that David might be experiencing stress-related issues and refers him to a specialist. A clinical psychologist, Dr. Linda Carpenter, is brought in to assess David. Dr. Carpenter conducts a series of interviews and psychological tests to understand David's mental state. During these sessions, David's responses become increasingly erratic. He expresses fears and thoughts that are not typical for his age, and his behavior suggests a possible underlying psychological issue. Dr. Carpenter diagnoses David with a severe form of dissociation, but her treatment seems only to provide temporary relief. Concerned about the possibility of a neurological condition, John and Sarah arrange for David to see a neurologist. Brain scans and EEGs are performed, but no physical abnormalities are detected. The neurologist notes that David's symptoms do not fit typical patterns of neurological disorders, suggesting that the problem might be more complex and possibly psychosomatic. As traditional methods yield little progress, the family explores alternative therapies, including visits to a holistic healer and sessions with a therapist specializing in unconventional methods. Despite their efforts, David's condition continues to deteriorate, with increasing reports of violent outbursts and strange behaviors. The culmination of these trials leads Sarah and John to Father Michael O'Reilly, a priest known for his deep spiritual insight. They are desperate for answers and are willing to explore all possibilities. Father O'Reilly listens to their concerns with a combination of compassion and skepticism. He conducts his own observations and is troubled by the severity and nature of David's symptoms. Father O'Reilly agrees to undertake a preliminary spiritual evaluation, keeping an open mind about the potential for a spiritual or supernatural component. As Father O'Reilly begins his assessment, he notes the intensity of David's symptoms: extreme aversion to holy symbols, deep-seated fear and hostility towards religious practices, and an unsettling change in voice and demeanor. While Father O'Reilly remains cautious, he cannot entirely dismiss the possibility of a supernatural influence. He recommends further investigation and suggests a preliminary exorcism should the situation continue to escalate. This chapter sets the stage for a deeper exploration of David's condition and the unfolding of events that challenge the boundaries between psychological and supernatural explanations. It introduces the primary characters, highlights the family's distress, and begins to hint at the potential for a darker force at play. In the weeks following the initial consultation with Father Michael O'Reilly, David Dawson's condition deteriorates dramatically. The once occasional episodes of unsettling behavior become more frequent and severe. David exhibits a range of increasingly alarming symptoms. David's physical appearance changes noticeably. He loses weight rapidly, his skin becomes pallid, and dark circles form under his eyes. He develops unexplained bruises and scratches on his body, which he cannot recall acquiring. Strange phenomena begin to occur around David. Household objects move inexplicably, and electronic devices malfunction. The Dawson family reports hearing disembodied voices and footsteps in the house. Objects like crosses and religious artifacts fall or break without any apparent cause. David's behavior becomes increasingly erratic. He speaks in languages unknown to him and exhibits knowledge of obscure facts and events that are baffling to his family. His temperament swings from violent rage to deep, despairing depression. He often lashes out at his family, especially during episodes where he appears to be in a trance-like state. David shows a vehement aversion to religious symbols and holy water. He becomes visibly agitated and hostile in the presence of anything sacred, including crosses, Bibles, and crucifixes. This reaction further fuels the belief that something malevolent might be influencing him. As David's condition worsens, the Dawson family becomes increasingly desperate. They explore every avenue to help their son, but each effort only seems to make things worse. The Dawsons continue to seek help from medical professionals, but despite numerous visits to specialists, there are no clear answers. Every test, scan, and examination returns normal results, leaving the doctors perplexed and the family frustrated. They turn to a series of psychiatric evaluations, hoping to find a psychological explanation. However, the psychiatrists struggle to diagnose David accurately. Medications and therapies offer only temporary relief, and his symptoms continue to escalate, leaving the professionals as confused as his family. The family reaches out to spiritual healers and alternative therapists, seeking any possible remedy. They attempt meditation, energy healing, and consultations with various spiritualists. But these efforts fail to provide significant improvement. The ongoing crisis takes a heavy emotional toll on the Dawson family. John and Sarah's marriage begins to strain under the pressure of constant worry and conflict over the best course of action. Emily, the younger sister, becomes fearful and anxious, struggling to understand the changes in her brother and the eerie occurrences in their home. Father Michael O'Reilly, observing the worsening situation, decides to take more direct action. He performs a series of private blessings and prayers, attempting to provide some form of spiritual protection and relief. However, his efforts seem to have only a fleeting effect, and David's condition continues to spiral out of control. Father O'Reilly arranges for a more thorough investigation into David's case, including consultations with experts in demonology and exorcism. The priest's findings suggest that David's symptoms align with those of demonic possession, a notion Father O'Reilly approaches with both caution and trepidation. With the situation reaching a critical point and no other viable solutions in sight, Father O'Reilly and the Dawson family make the difficult decision to proceed with an exorcism. This decision is not made lightly, given the gravity and potential risks involved. Father O'Reilly prepares for the exorcism by consulting ancient texts, gathering the necessary sacramentals, and ensuring that all participants are adequately prepared for the ritual. With the family's uneasy anticipation of the exorcism, they are fraught with a mixture of hope and fear, desperately clinging to the hope that this extreme measure will bring relief and restore David to his former self. This chapter illustrates the growing darkness in David's life and the family's escalating desperation. It sets up the impending exorcism as a critical turning point in the story, highlighting the intensity of the conflict between the forces influencing David and the efforts to combat them.